you have an action series coming up, Daredevil, which Stephen DeKnight has said very much, like, Scott's in better shape than any of us. And, you know, there's an intense physicality in that. So I wanted to ask you what it's like for you to tackle this kind of physicality, and then also sort of action sequences as a blind man, as Stick in Daredevil.
As Stick, it was brand new for me because I'd never played blind before.
Yeah.
So the first thing I had to figure out was, how do I do this? And I kind of got to know very well during the shooting of it, a guy named Philip Silvera, who was the stunt coordinator. And when I first got together with him in New York, he said, "You know most of this stuff, don't you?" I went, "Yeah, I've been playing around with it since I was 9 years old." And after an afternoon of he and I kind of just, you know, playing around on the set, he said, "We'll have stunt doubles and with long shots, because I don't want to really kill you." He said, "But you can do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I want you to do all this stuff." And the trick for me was being able to incorporate, you know, action that was really on the edge of Hong Kong Bruce Lee stuff.
Was that who you were sort of drawing on, Bruce Lee as a model?
I was drawing on the many lessons I've learned during my life, a lot of which I learned at a place here in LA called, excuse me, the Inosanto Academy. Filipino martial arts and Brazilian jiu-jitsu, a lot of stuff. The trick was to have that flow and be, you know, Daredevil is probably the most stunt-heavy TV series ever shot.
Wow.
And my character is on the sort of high volume side of that. So for me, it was almost every day. The challenge is too weak a word. The demands of the part were to integrate blindness and that, and you know, and being a martial arts master with the sort of emotional life that was also going on at the same time. It was a lot of fun. I loved it.
Talk about that emotional life. I mean, were you familiar with this character? Did Stephen Knight draw you to certain comics to kind of get familiar? Were you working off the
to
page?
begin with, I'm going to be really careful about what I say,
Yeah,
because
of
if
course.
you know Steve, you know Marvel.
Yeah.
Okay, Marvel are the most, how do I say, security conscious group I have ever been around. And I respect that. They treated me phenomenally well. They let me create this character as much as I wanted. No one ever like edited me and everything I wanted or needed in terms of living in New York or having props or all of it was phenomenal. So I want to really respect their desire for security. So I don't know. I had to learn completely about the world of comic books and graphic comics and who Stick is in relationship to the Daredevil, and I knew none of that. What I did know, once I met all these people involved in the show, was whether they were 70 or 17, this stuff is serious to them.
Yeah.
And so I took it, I made it the decision that it was going to be serious for me too. You know, it's interesting playing something that's gritty and kind of reality based, but then also, yeah, I mean, at one point, I don't want to really. Well, I can say this. At one point, I said, "Well, how old am I?" And the director said, "You're in your late 90s." And I went, "My late 90s?" And he said, "Well, you have to understand this world that you're, you know, physically, you still have the strength of a 22-year-old.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of work in that comic sort of world where you could creep up to naturalism and reality, but at a certain point, kind of not, too.
I
feel myself sort of almost stammering talking about it because they really want,
yeah,
they want as much of this show to be a surprise to the audience as possible, and I get that.
Yeah.
It should be.
We love the trailers that we've seen, the street level grittiness of it. But yeah, it is a heightened world, you know.
It's so much fun to do.
Yeah.
I mean, really loved doing it. And it was super hard work.